Video from an Iranian news agency shows what it says are missiles fired toward Israel in retaliation for the killing of top national security advisor Ali Larijani. He and the leader of an Iranian paramilitary group were among those killed in an Israeli strike late Monday. And authorities in central Israel say at least 2 people were killed by what appeared to be a cluster munition strike. Several neighborhoods and a train station were damaged.
CNN Jeremy Diamond joins us now from the scene. What more can you tell us about the attack, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's right, Anderson. We are in Ramat Gan, just outside of Tel Aviv, where 2 people were killed in the latest Iranian ballistic missile attack. This is as a result of what appear to be cluster munitions that Iran has increasingly been outfitting to the warheads of its ballistic missiles. And at this scene, one of those smaller bomblets appears to have made a direct impact. I want to pan up here to that balcony that you may be able to see that is destroyed there. Part of that apartment as well suffered a serious blow. 2 people, apparently in their 70s, an elderly couple, were killed by the blast. Paramedics said that they arrived on the scene and found them both unconscious without any sign of life and pronounced them dead at the scene. They did not make it into a bomb shelter as those air raid sirens sounded. But Anderson, this is just one of what appear to be multiple impacts across the Tel Aviv area. We've seen videos in neighboring communities outside of Tel Aviv as well. We also saw one of Tel Aviv's train stations that appears to have been hit by one of those cluster submunitions. And from the videos that we saw earlier tonight of that ballistic missile coming in, this appears to be a larger variety of Iran's ballistic missile. They have something called the Khorramshahr in their arsenal that can deploy up to 80 of these cluster submunitions, as opposed to the normal 24 bomblets that we've been seeing with the missiles that they traditionally use in their attacks here. And this brings the total now of people killed in Israel due to Iran's attacks to 14, and Iran showing once again that despite the fact that some 70% of their ballistic missile launchers have been destroyed, their air defense capacities obliterated, so much of their military infrastructure devastated, they are still showing capacities to exert a price on both the U.S. and Israel, and here getting through Israel's air defenses, and in this instance tonight, killing 2 people. Anderson?
Has the pace of, I assume the pace of incoming Iranian attacks has certainly slowed since the start of this. Have they decreased much in recent days?
You know, there hasn't been a huge change in recent days, but we've been seeing, multiple ballistic missile barrages fired at Israel. What has changed is the number of missiles. We're sometimes seeing just single ballistic missiles being fired by Iran, but again, they're outfitting many of those missiles with these cluster munitions that can deliver smaller impacts across a wide area, as much as 7 or 8 miles in certain instances. We're also seeing Iran increasingly coordinating its attacks with Hezbollah, which today alone fired dozens of rockets in a single barrage towards northern Israel. Sometimes Iran and Hezbollah firing their rockets and missiles at the same time to try and overwhelm Israel's air defenses. We're certainly not seeing the kinds of impacts in Israel from direct hits of those larger warheads on the ballistic missiles from Iran, likely because they don't have the capacity to fire such large barrages so that one of those missiles perhaps makes it through, and instead they're resorting to these cluster munitions, which, again, if people stay in their shelters, are likely not going to be deadly. Those shelters do protect quite well against what is a relatively small explosive here. But in this case, as you can see, a couple in their 70s apparently didn't make it to the bomb shelter and were killed directly on impact, it would seem, from one of those smaller cluster submunitions.
This attack is in response to the death of Ali Larijani, top security official in Iran, and Ghulam Reza Soleimani. So let's talk about Soleimani first. He was the leader of the Basij militia, which, if you're trying to keep track of everything that is part of the Iranian security apparatus, that is essentially the volunteer militia of people who are trying to keep the Iranian populace in line with the regime and suppress dissent. So that guy in charge of that operation, Ali Larijani, in charge of the security apparatus writ large, and also one of the main figures in nuclear negotiations. So this is an attack in response to the death of those 2 people. We heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu earlier today, and he said essentially that they are not done and that they could be targeting, certainly he is not off limits, the new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. Listen to a soundbite from the Prime Minister of Israel. He references Nowruz, which is the Persian New Year, which comes up first day of spring on Saturday, in addition to the Fire Festival, which is celebrated right before Persian New Year.
In the past 24 hours, we knocked out 2 of the terrorist chieftains, the top terrorist chieftains of this tyranny. Our aircraft are hitting the terror operatives on the ground, in the crossroads, in the city squares. This is meant to enable the brave people of Iran to celebrate the Festival of Fire. So celebrate and Happy Nowruz. We're watching from above.
Joining me now is Hassan Al-Hassan, a senior fellow for the Middle East policy at the International Institute for Strategic Studies. Hassan, great to have you with us. And it's quite a moment here where you see the killing of Ali Larijani and, so many questions about what this means for Iran's decision-making structure. Who is going to replace him? Has this degraded the regime? What is your assessment of this move of removing a heavyweight like Larijani?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I think it's quite clear that Larijani has been one of the key influential figures within the Iranian regime that has been calling the shots alongside a few others. He is a veteran of this system in Iran. He has served within the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps. He commands wide respect and is able to really bring together and work across factions and institutions. And he, I think, really plays an important role in ensuring the cohesion of a regime that is under immense stress and pressure because of US and Israeli military strikes. There are reports that Larijani was heading negotiations, potentially, and orchestrating at least negotiations with the United States behind the scenes. In any case, he was definitely one of the few people who would eventually be able to pull the right levers within the Iranian system for a would-be diplomatic solution, if at all. So I think by taking out Ali Larijani, I think Israel is, on the one hand, most certainly trying to spoil I think any chances for a ceasefire. I think as far as Israel is concerned, there are far-reaching objectives that have yet to be accomplished in Iran. The immediate effect of this would be, I think, a strengthening of the IRGC's hold, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps' hold over decision-making in Iran. So Ali Larijani was one of the few figures who could work with the IRGC, but who could also ensure that he was also orchestrating and ensuring cohesion with other factions within the regime. And now that he's gone, there are other factions that still command and other personalities that still command respect. But I think what Israel is really getting at here, it's really destroying, I think, the connective tissue that holds all of these factions and institutions of the Iranian regime together. So I think this clearly
I wonder, Hassan,
disintegrating.
Yeah, so disintegrating the structure, right? And I get what you're saying, and I wonder what we need to look out for in the next few days, because it would normally be the president that would be appointing, replacement for this position. Who could be the replacement?
I don't know. It's too soon to tell, and there are a number of personalities who could rise to that. I haven't seen any credible indications to suggest who could succeed him in his place. It almost seems like a death sentence, I think, at this point, for whoever is going to be nominated to succeed Ali Larijani, because I think it's clear the Israelis will keep targeting the top layer of Iranian defense and political and clerical leadership in order to truly disintegrate the structure. I think this is what the Israeli objective is at the moment, and hitting at that connective structure, I think, gets them there. And don't get me wrong, countries in the region, like the Gulf states, as much as they wanted to avoid and avert this war, there isn't any sympathy or love lost for someone like Ali Larijani, who not only was probably overseeing the crushing of the Iranian protests, but really has been overseeing the Iranian lashing out against Gulf cities and infrastructure.